Comic News, episode 152. I am your only host, Chris. Mike is out. He is on important business. He has a day job. I do too, but his is tends to take him out of the state / country / world. So it is just me this week. And I really wanted to do a episode for you all. I got an amazing guest lined up, so I'm going to do it solo. Luckily, not a ton of news, and the news that did drop, I believe we can talk about next week and still be relevant and have a nice conversation about. Yes, Mike will be back next week. So basically, we're going to cut to my interview with Lance Stanford from the Night Nerd podcast. And The Embassy, his comic coming out very soon, and currently on Kickstarter, so make sure to check down below in the show notes for that. So yeah, we'll cut to that, and on the other side, I'll talk about the books that I've read this week. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have on the show comic book writer and fellow podcaster, Lance Stanford. Welcome to the show, Lance.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I'm really excited.
So, quick, we do it with all of our guests. What's your origin story in comics? How'd you get in? What made you want to write comics?
Well, growing up, I always read a lot of comics. Back, not to date myself, but we still had the spinner racks in grocery stores and drugstores and stuff like that. And so being there and seeing those, this sounds cool. And late 80s, early 90s, right before the image revolution, people like Jim Lee out there drawing really pretty pictures and reading it, and the X-Men cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoon, Batman the Animated Series. It was a kind of how now people go see the movies and then go to the comic shops. Back then it was you watch the cartoons and you went in the comic shops. And I started young and pretty much nonstop ever since. I've just really enjoyed comics and always had a passion for writing, and I thought, maybe I can try this. And a long time ago, I had a couple of books come out and things, but life happens, wife, kids, travel, stuff like that. But recently, I've been able to be in a position where I can get back into writing, and so I was like, all right, let's give it a try, let's go. And that's how I'm trying to be a comic writer now.
So it sounds like you grew up around the same time I did, because everything you just said is exactly what we talk about on the show.
Nice. It sticks with you.
Yeah. So, you do a show called The Nightly Nerd. It's a daily show, if I read correctly, and you do a different topic every week. How's that?
We try to make it a daily show. So each week I pick a topic. Like as of this recording, I just wrapped up my Birds of Prey week, because Birds of Prey, I try to make something topical, whether it be a movie or a holiday, somebody's birthday, somebody just passed away, and that's the overall topic of the week. And then Monday I talk about video games, Tuesdays TV and movies, Wednesdays comics, Thursdays is history, and Fridays are like fan questions or the movie review, whatever it may be. I've been doing it for quite some time. I just, in December, hit 1,000 shows. So I'm at like 1050 now, I think. It's a lot of fun. I'm sure you can attest to sometimes that microphone, you stare at it and it just stares back and you're like, I just don't want to talk. But you do it and it's fun. And, we have some other shows on the network that I produce. A couple of guys talk about comics and movies. We have another show where they're going back and rereading every issue of Spawn. It's called Respawn, and they're talking about it one story arc at a time. So that's been a lot of fun. We just started that. We used to have a show. You'll dig this. We took it down. The first few seasons are available, called DC Animated Adventures, where we did a live commentary on every episode of Batman the Animated Series.
I'm in the middle of a show just like that.
Nice. It was a lot of fun. So, and then on Facebook we share the stupid memes and the funny things, and it's a lot of fun. Everybody should go check out The Night Nerd. It's everywhere. I'm trying to learn how to do TikTok, but I think I'm a little old for that.
Yeah. So for me, like we have guests on the show almost every week. Do you guys do that as well?
Yes, we do. I actually yesterday recorded an interview with Freddie Williams, the guy who drew the Batman Ninja Turtle crossover and the He-Man Thundercat crossover. I don't have guests frequently, but I try to get good guests when I can. Like I've had Matt Rosenberg, who did X-Men before Jonathan Hickman, had a long Punisher run. He's been on the show a couple of times. Brian Hill, who wrote Detective Comics for a while, and he's writing Batman and the Outsiders and Angel. He's been on the show. Cena Grace, who did Iceman and Jughead's Time Police, Ghost in L.A., he's been on the show. For my 1000th show, I had Monty Nero, who I've always really liked. He did a book called Death Sentence. It was a little indie book, but it was wonderful. But he's worked on X-Men and the Hulk. So yeah, I do guess from time to time. I've had some video game creators. There's a game called Perception where you're this blind girl and it's a scary game, and I don't play scary games. So I even told the guys, like, man, I made it like 20 minutes in your game and that was it. But the guy who made that game, his company, he's been on the show. So yes, I have guests, not frequently, but when we do, we try and have a lot of fun with it and try and do it up big. So it seems like a cool deal.
Well, so then maybe you could speak to this, because I've given my point of view on this, because I have also, since doing the show, started writing comics. Has having these people on the show and talking to them, has that given you any inspiration to really go for it, or any inspiration to pick it back up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because most of those, well, Monty Nero is the only one that I've had on since I got back into writing. And a lot of the other ones, we'd have some great off-mic talks about style and process and doing this and doing that. And, hearing them talk and hearing their passion, it makes you realize you have a passion, and I'm like, I want to do this. I see how much fun they're having with it. I see what they're doing with it, and I just want to do too. So yeah, it's infectious for sure. But then you hear, because I always ask them, how did you get in? And everybody's story is different. And a lot of them, it's like, well, things got pretty scary there for a while. Couldn't pay the bills, couldn't do this. And so, that helps keep things in perspective, I guess. That way it's not, very few times do people just write one book and then they get picked up. That Monty Nero was one of those people. He wrote the first issue of Death Sentence, and then like Titan Comics called him the next day to work for them. And so that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's seeing the journey both as the creator and then in the creation itself, like how people write. It lit a fire under me for sure.
Yeah, and those off mic or off, hot mic conversations are some of the best. I wish I could share them with people. Sure you feel the same way, because like so many creators just talk about not even just like process and this and that. We have those conversations too, but I just love getting into the nerdy continuity stuff with them too, where like they're fans first. Mm-hmm. And for most part, it's really a lot of fun.
And I think that's something, especially like this group of creators right now. I'm going to go back to Matt Rosenberg just because they're all kind of our age. They grew up watching the cartoons, doing everything, seeing the characters and reading the characters that we read and loved. And they're bringing those stories back, bringing those characters back. And yeah, to hear them geek out sometimes, it's just kind of makes me feel cool. I'm like, okay, well, I don't geek out that much about that. So that I'm glad you're the guy that's writing this book, because you also have a passion for it. But yeah, just seeing how much they're just like us, I guess, is kind of the best way to say it. They say don't meet your idols, but I don't think that's true for most comic book people. I know there are some out there that don't meet, but when you look at other life paths, a lot of times most kids aren't going to, if they like football, they're not going to get to go talk to Patrick Mahomes or something. Mm-hmm. And that's one good thing about comics is it's a very open world. And a lot of people, if you just say, hey, what's up? they'll, especially if you're at a convention or something, they'll sit there and talk to you. And I think that's speaks to the craft and the genre, that everybody is trying to help everybody else out. And you have those opportunities at any stage. And those creators, I mean, they'll tell stories of, oh, last year. So even after they've made it, they're like, oh yeah, last year I was at a con and I ran into so-and-so and I just like geeked out and had to get them to sign this and sign that. And again, it's like, okay, one of us, you're just like I am. So that's also inspirational, because unlike sport, I mean, yes, you'd have to have talent. There's no doubt there, but it's like, okay, I see somebody who is just like me doing what I want to do, so I can do that as well. And that's really nice.
Yeah. Well spoken. So let's jump into the project. The book is called The Embassy. It's on Kickstarter right now. Give us the quick run through of what this book is all about.
So The Embassy stars Jan Robles. He's a recent law school graduate. He's from Puerto Rico, graduated here in the States, and he's just out of place. And it's all about him trying to find his place in the world and realizing that there's more than just our world. He stumbles upon the Embassy, which is an organization that takes beings from other Earths, other timelines, things like alternate worlds, universes, and places them in homes on our world and gives them paths, and basically meaning, I guess your quick elevator pitch is he's an alien career counselor, but it's a lot more than that. I like to use the terms like it's a diplomatic Men in Black or Interstellar West Wing, because while there's going to be action and stuff in the book, it's very much a immigrant story, a personal story, and a story about belonging. And I think that's what hopefully sets it apart is, it's not just big space battles and things like that. It's like, no, here's a story we can all relate to, but in a fun and exciting new world and environment.
So your artist on this book is Daniel Cavill. I believe I'm saying that right. How did you and him hook up?
So okay, so actually I have 3 books in the works. 2 more are about to launch on Kickstarter, but he and I met in a Facebook group. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there of like writers and artists connecting, and letters and inkers and everything. And I said, hey, I'm trying to tell this kind of story. And 5,000 messages later from people all over the world. And I looked at him and I saw this guy and I'm like, man, this dude, I like his style for the kind of story. Cause and when you go check it out, you can see it's not your superhero style, but it's not a cartoony style. It's definitely in that kind of saga-esque vein, Fiona Staples and stuff. And I was like, that's what I want. Something that is not necessarily in one genre or another, and that to help about the story about belonging and being out of place, because it's like, well, it's not a Jim Lee or a Rob Liefeld knockoff, but it's also not, Jeff Smith or Scott McCloud knockoff either. It's something kind of familiar but different all at the same time. And I really fell in love with his work.
Yeah, his work looks fantastic on the page. Is he doing all 3 jobs for you? That is pencils, inks, and colors, or do you have other people handling that?
He's doing pencils and inks. Right now, the cover is the only thing in color. Hopefully, if we get to the point when we do a trade, the whole trade will be in color. Have a guy named James Sims that did color for the cover. And Micah Myers, who he's our letterer. He works on like Olympia for Image Comics, a couple other Image books and stuff like that. I kind of stumbled onto him too, and he's just fantastic. And actually on the whole thing, I have a whole team of other artists. I have a variant cover incentive that was designed and made by Chris Bishop, who's a buddy of mine. He's a tattoo artist, but he's also the guitar player for a band called Crowbot. and they're pretty big. I mean, they tour internationally and they like top 10 radio and stuff like that. He made the variant cover for me. And then a guy named Paul Gorey, who he and I are doing a book that is going to go up next month. He's a real big indie artist, like commissions and stuff like that. He just dropped an art book called Death by Stereo. That's all 80s characters and stuff, and it's awesome. He did a special pinup that we're giving away in one of the tiers too. So it's been a lot of fun / giant headache trying to juggle, all these different artists and stuff. But I feel, when I see the end product, it makes it worth it, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, I was just about to shout out Micah Myers. The dude has worked on everything, and it's just a fantastic letter. Let's see, when this launches, you will have 11 days left to fund it, and as of today, what were you, 800?
We need some love. We need some love. We need lots of love. Yeah. And that's something. So this is my first time to ever put anything up on Kickstarter. I've bought some things and backed some things. This is my first time, and it's interesting. Our project got selected as a project we love by Kickstarter, which is really cool and really awesome. And I thought that would mean money, in backers, but it doesn't necessarily correlate there. So yeah, we're still pretty far from our goal, but we launched at a weird time, like mid-month. And so now that it's the first of the month, hoping people got their bills paid, got a little extra spending cash, and we'll go check us out, because we have some crazy tiers, some really awesome stuff. And like I said, we need the love though, for sure. We're a long way away.
Yeah, we do a lot with Kickstarter people. We got a pretty heavy Kickstarter friendly audience base, and I can tell you that near the end of the when you're about to have a heart attack that you're not going to make it, that's when people seem to drove in and just start going. So keep that in the back of your head before you just start keeling over.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody, so make sure to check out the Kickstarter. I myself have backed it. It looks fantastic, and I recommend anyone out there to do it as well. But the link will be down below, everybody, so look there or on my social media. You'll see it. I'm sure I've shared it or will share it in the near future. But if people want to follow you, Lance, where's the best place to send them?
Best place, just look for The Night Nerd. It's NIGHT, like nighttime. The Night Nerd. That's my handle on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Like I said, if I can ever figure out TikTok, anywhere you look online, just look for The Night Nerd, and that's the best way to find me.
And they can find The Night Nerd on any podcatcher as well if they feel like listening to that too, right?
Yes. As far as every now and then I'll get an email like, "Oh, well, you're not on Joe's podcast, something." And I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. So we're on most major podcast formats for sure. And like I said, we're between all the shows, you're going to get a show a day. And I'm not going to get into the quality versus quantity discussion there, but you're going to get it like a show a day. So you're going to have plenty to listen to. My shows are usually 10 to 15 minutes. So, something you can listen to on the way to work or on lunch break, smoke break, something like that. Just learn a couple of things that maybe you didn't know and something you can relate to. It's a lot of fun.
Cool, everybody. So when you're done listening to this show, then I give you permission to go listen to his show. And make sure you check out his Kickstarter as well. It looks fantastic. Everybody at The Night Nerd everywhere online, no matter where it is. And Lance, thanks so much for being on. You were awesome. And I really am rooting for the book. It looks awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully when the next one rolls around, we can come back and do it again.
And we're back, everybody. Thanks so much to Lance for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. We had a lot of fun talking, especially after the mics were hot. And just seems like a really cool guy with a really awesome comic that I myself have backed, so my money is behind it. I suggest you guys check it out. It looks really good. The art is fantastic. The story is interesting. So Before I take off, let's talk about the books I read this week. So, starting with Daredevil number 17, we got Matt Murdock in this crisis of he's not Daredevil, but he kind of is Daredevil, and they ended up stealing a bunch of money from these people that basically crime lords in New York and giving it back to Hell's Kitchen. Meanwhile, there's a conspiracy going around that the police are not patrolling Hell's Kitchen anymore and something needs to be done. So Matt kind of confirms it by heading up the people that are laundering the money himself. Really great issue. Chip Zdarsky's run on Daredevil, although very little Daredevil in it, it's just been really fantastic seeing Matt Murdock make the worst mistake he can and then reinventing himself and trying to come back from that. I really do recommend this run. It's one of the better runs we've had in a long time. Justice League Odyssey number 18. I really enjoy this book, but right now it's in a limbo of we're off to fight Darkseid, but we need to wait a few issues to do that. So it's a well-drawn book. Ever since Abnett took over, it's just been much better. The team we got is cool, and the lore behind the New Gods and the New Gods is awesome. In this one, it's basically a lot of we're about to go fight Darkseid, and Cyborg having an inner conflict where he's still controlled by Darkseid, but there's something in there that's still Cyborg, and he's trying to get out. Surprisingly good run, Justice League Odyssey. I've really enjoyed it. Sticking with Justice League number 40. This is the new creative team, so Venditti and Mankey coming on and getting kind of back to basics with Justice League. It's the Justice League team we know fighting a existential threat that isn't universe shifting. So the Eradicator has found a old colonial planet of the Kryptonians, and he's found a way to genetically engineer, is the nice way to put it, the old flaw in Kryptonians out of them so they're not susceptible to kryptonite, and brings them to Earth. And that was basically the book. It was a big setup for this. Once again, really a back to basics kind of approach to Justice League. And I love Venditti. I think he's a great writer. I think he's one of the better writers that DC has that nobody really talks about. And I'm really excited for him to get the main stage in Justice League. And I think this is a great place to start. My only critique here is that one of the things we all love about comics is continuity, and the continuity is a little shifty here. I don't really know where things take place in the timeline, and I don't really know how things are going. There's also a weird moment, which I feel like Venditti's really going to tackle later on, but it's worth bringing up, where Bruce Batman has a moment where he talks to Alfred and says he's going to do something. And then later on, they mention that Alfred's dead. So I don't read the Batman proper title right now. Maybe that gets answered there. Maybe Mike will have more answers on that. I could ask him next week. But that did kind of come out as strange to me in that moment. But I think there's a reason for that, and Venditti's going to tackle it. Star Wars, Darth Vader #1. Wow, what a great issue. This was Greg Pak taking over Darth Vader, and with the new time that they're tackling in Star Wars, which is post Empire Strikes Back. So this is literally Vader dealing with the ramifications of finding out that his son exists, and basically cutting his hand off and almost killing him, but not really. And he decides that he needs to go and find everybody that held this secret from him and cause pain to them. And he ends up going back to Tatooine to find where Luke grew up. And then there's a huge reveal at the end of somebody who's still alive, but I'm not convinced that it's actually her. So it was a great intro to a Darth Vader book. I really, really enjoyed it. If you're a Star Wars fan and you're not already on board on all the Star Wars books, I think this is a really good one. At least one issue in. The Man Who Fucked Up Time. That's right. John Layman's new book, Aftershock. I bought this book on a whim because I was like, I like John Layman and I like time travel stories. Let's see what he's got. And it's kind of a neat story about a guy who can't finish his college degree, ends up getting into this lab with his old college roommate that is the reason that, or is the lab that creates time travel. And a version of himself comes back to see him and say, you can go back and fix a few things. And so he does. And when he comes back, everything is screwed up. There's a dictator of the United States called Abraham Lincoln VI. The police are riding triceratops and are samurais. It's the wackiest version of time that could be. And it ends with him running into somebody that basically gives him an ultimatum and saying, you need to fix this. And the people he runs into is really cool, so I don't want to spoil it. But I really, really like this book. I really recommend it. If you can find a copy of it, or if you do digital, check it out. If you like time travel stories, it's a really cool book so far. Miles Morales, Spider-Man, number 15. This is one of those titles that I really enjoy, but it's one of those issues where it was kind of a holdover issue. There is a big fight with the Green Goblin from the Ultimate Universe in this, which was fun, but it's Miles coming into conflict with his principal as his principal realizes who he is. And they kind of hide that, but there's definitely a sense of the principal knows exactly who he is and that he's Spider-Man. So we're really gearing up for something with Ultimatum moving forward, and I'm interested to see more of that. But this was definitely a book in the middle of a story arc, but still enjoyable nonetheless. X-Men Fantastic Four number 1. Another Chip Zdarsky book. Can you tell I like him? So this is in the new X-Men continuity where Krakoa exists and all this, and there's basically a battle a battle of words between the X-Men and the Fantastic Four about where Franklin Richards should be and where he deserves to exist. Should he stay with his family on Earth, or should he come to Krakoa and be with his fellow mutants? The underlying thing with all this is that Franklin's powers are slowly fading and he's losing them. And both sides feel like they are best equipped to take care of the issue. So it was kind of an intro to all of that. I really enjoyed how Chip handled everything there. And it has the layer to be a very good book moving forward. So it's definitely worth picking up, especially if you like Fantastic Four or you like X-Men, or like me, are into this new X-Men because you love Hickman as much as I do. It was a really enjoyable book. Captain America: The End, 1 of 1. This was a interesting book. So these The End books are all about the end. They're the last story of these heroes. And in this one, there's a virus that's taking over that turns everybody into Red Skull. So it's a pretty wacky story. It's fun. It's Cap fighting Red Skull, except there's like thousands of them. And you end up finding out that Cap has a cure that he didn't know he had, and is able to cure the world of this. So it was a fun one-issue story. If you're a Cap fan, I think you'll enjoy it much as I am. It's Eric Larson doing both writing and art for it, so the art is very Eric Larson, but an enjoyable book nonetheless. And that was it. That was my last book. So everybody, thank you so much for listening this week. Next week we'll get back to the usual program, and Mike will be here to give all the ha-has. So thank you so much for joining me. Make sure to find us at FortressComicNews.com, or to find me at FortressChris on Twitter. And you can find Mike at FortressRicker on Twitter if you so want to. And if you are listening to us, make sure to give us a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever podcatcher you use. It greatly is appreciated by me and helps us find more ears that want to listen to us. And then if you're watching us on the YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, share, comment down below, do all that fun stuff. I'm sure you all know it and are sick of hearing it. And also, if you want to go to that extra step, remember, patreon.com/sportscomicnews, where you get my other show, the Bat Friends Podcast, 3 days early. You could also get the exclusive Amazing Mike and That Guy Chris show, which we're doing twice a month, and other goodies as well as things grow. So if you want to go that extra mile, that's a great way to do it. So once again, thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.